Good evening. Thank you all so much for being here with us for this special event. My name is Rachel Hansen, and I teach here at UNC Asheville in the English department. I want to take the opportunity to thank Malaprops Bookstore, our co-sponsor of this event, and also a huge thanks for the Goodman Endowment for making this evening possible for the Visiting Writer Series. We have many eager and talented young creative writers and scholars in the English department, supported by dedicated faculty who give above and beyond to our students. And without them and the generous support of our sponsors and endowments, we would not be able to provide such an amazing event or events such as this one to our students, the campus community, and the community at large. I would also like to thank the staff and faculty who helped organize this event. It has been quite a team effort, and I appreciate each of you so much. Thank you, Bridget Belanger. You are a miracle worker. And I can't thank you enough for help overseeing this event tonight. Thank you, Kent Thompson, Jonathan Brown, event staff, and our student volunteers, Obi Arnold, Michael Kelly, Michelle Sisk, Faith Wilson, Jacob Sharp, Robin Grissom, Catherine Titus, and Emma Eads. You are lovely humans, and I appreciate you to no end. Please mark your calendars for our final Visiting Writers event of the academic year. A reading by the extremely talented and exciting fiction writer Jamel Brinkley. He will be with us on Thursday, April 6th. To register for the event, please visit the English department website where you will find the Eventbrite link. Jamel's reading will take place in the Mountain View Room in the Sherrill Center, so don't come back here, go to the Sherrill Center. And if you're interested in supporting our young creative writers, please check out the flyer. There's a flyer somewhere around here. Do y'all get a flyer in your seats? Okay. You can check out the flyer in your seats this evening. And then I just have a few logistical notes. So tonight, Ms. Lemon will be reading for about 40 minutes, maybe a little less, followed by, or a little more, by 15-minute Q&A from the audience. Please, if you have a question, use the mic over here, my left. Or if you need assistance, please raise your hand and we will bring the mic to you. We have books for sale just outside the room here, and after the reading, Ms. Lemon will sign a copy of your book, though we will have a hard stop on the book signing line at 8:30. So if you are in line and it looks like your book, you might not make it to get your book signed, I'm sorry, you probably won't make it. We have a tight schedule. Our guest is sought after all across the country, as you might imagine. Let's see here. All right, we'll do our best, but I make no promises. For the health and safety of our speaker and each of you, masks must be worn in the book line. If you don't have one, we'll provide one for you. All right, so for the event at hand. I've been teaching Ada Lemon's work in my classes for some time, and I've always loved it. My students always respond to her work with excitement and joy. But last year, in one of my creative writing workshops, one of my students, a young poet, had a reaction to her work that I will never forget. We read How to Triumph Like a Girl from Bright Dead Things. And at the end, as I opened up the class for discussion, my student put his head in his hands briefly and then sat up straight before promptly dropping his arms to his side, fell back in his chair and just said, "It's just so good." And it was in that moment that I knew we had to find a way to bring Ada Lemon to campus. So thank you, Mike Eastlis. You are as responsible for this lovely event as much as anyone. See you. And now, without further ado, I'll introduce our guest of the evening. Ada Lemon is the author of 6 books of poetry, including The Carrying, which won the National Book Critics Circle Award for Poetry. Her book, Bright Dead Things, was nominated for the National Book Award, the National Book Critics Award, and the Kingsley Tufts Poetry Award. Her work has been supported most recently by a Guggenheim Fellowship, and she was the host of the critically acclaimed poetry podcast, The Slowdown. She grew up in Sonoma, California, and now lives in Lexington, Kentucky, where she writes and teaches remotely. Her new book of poetry, The Hurting Kind, is out now from Milkweed Editions. She is the 24th Poet Laureate of the United States. Please join me in welcoming Ada Lemon to the stage.
excited to be here. Don't tell anyone in Kentucky this, but the last text I sent my husband just now said, should we move to Asheville? But in all seriousness, I know this has been a ton of work to put this event together, and I'm really happy it worked out and that we could keep it on the schedule, because you can imagine that this was booked really far in advance, way before the laureateship, and it's easy to, of course, think, well, we can't do everything, but we can't do everything, but we can do Asheville. So here we are. I'm thinking it's going to be about 12 poems. That's what I'm thinking. I'm telling you that so you have some security. I once went to a poetry reading where a woman got up and she had a stack of index cards, and she said, I'm working on this poem and it's kind of endless. And I was like, you could feel the whole crowd like, oh no, I don't want to hear an endless poem. So let's say 12 poems. I think that'll just, there's 12 months in the year. It's the equinox. I feel like 12 is good. What else do I want to say? Just thank you again for everyone who had a hand in putting this together, because I know it doesn't come easy. And happy equinox. Because it is the spring equinox here, I thought I would read a spring poem or two. Spring is my favorite month to write because it's dramatic as hell. Everyone's like, oh, it's going to be spring soon and it'll be beautiful. We're like, yeah, but it'll be spring, so we have no idea what's going to happen. That's spring. So I'm going to start with a poem from my book, The Carrying, that's about trees. Ancestors. I've come here from the rocks, the bone-like chert, obsidian, lava rock. I've come here from the trees, chestnut, bay laurel, toyon, acacia, redwood, cedar, 1,000 oaks that bend with moss and old man's beard. I was born on a green couch on Carragher Road, between the vineyards and the horse pasture. I don't remember what I first saw, the first brick of light that unhinged me from the beginning. I don't remember my brother's face, my mother, my father. Later, I remember leaves. Through car windows, through bedroom windows, through the classroom window, the way they shaded and patterned the ground, all that power from roots. Imagine you must survive without running. I've come from the lacing patterns of leaves. I do not know where else I belong. Thank you. And this is a poem I wrote for my mother, who I was also just texting with. My mother ends every phone call with, okay, text me every 5 minutes. So we still, that's what we do. So this is a poem I wrote for her. Like many people, I have a curvature in the spine. I have scoliosis, and I think sometimes, like anyone who has any kind of chronic pain or anything, that they have the moment where they feel like, God, I've been dealing with this for a long time. And this is the moment where I realized, no, I had some help. The raincoat. When the doctor suggested surgery and a brace for all my youngest years, my parents scrambled to take me to massage therapy, deep tissue work, osteopathy, and soon my crooked spine unspooled a bit. I could breathe again and move more in a body unclouded by pain. My mom would tell me to sing songs to her, the whole 45-minute drive to Middle Two Rock Road and 45 minutes back from physical therapy. She'd say that even my voice sounded unfettered by my spine afterward. So I sang and sang because I thought she liked it. I never asked her what she gave up to drive me or how her day was before this chore. Today, at her age, I was driving myself home from yet another spine appointment, singing along to some maudlin but solid song on the radio. And I saw a mom take her raincoat off and give it to her young daughter when a storm took over the afternoon. My God, I thought, my whole life I've been under her raincoat, thinking it somehow a marvel that I never got wet. And because we're almost to dandelion season, and my husband and I are very close, and yet I think if we were ever to have an argument, it would be about my love for dandelions. Dandelion insomnia. The big-ass bees are back. Tipsy, sun-drunk, and heavy, with thick-knitted leg warmers of pollen. I was up all night again, so today's yellow hours seem strange and hallucinogenic. The neighborhood is lousy with mowers, crazy dogs, and people mending what winter ruined. What I can't get over is something simple, easy. How could a dandelion seed head seemingly grow overnight? A neighbor mows the lawn, and bam, the next morning there's 100 dandelion seed heads, straight as arrows and proud as cats, high above any green blade of manicured grass. It must bug some folks. A flower so tricky it can reproduce asexually, making perfect identical selves. Bam, another me. Bam, another me. I can't help it. I root for that persecuted rosette, so hyper in its own making it seems to devour the land. Even its name, translated from the French dent de lion, means lion's tooth. It's vicious, made for a time that requires tenacity, a way of remaking the toughest self while everyone else is asleep. This is a poem that I had this incredible honor of attending an event at the White House, and I almost didn't make it to the event, and I stood way in the back, and as the event was getting started, Dr. Biden made a few remarks and then started reading this poem. And I looked at my husband in this very surreal, like, how is this happening right now? And then he looks at me, he's like, imagine if we didn't come. So, this is my poem, Dead Stars. Out here, there's a bowing even the trees are doing. Winter's icy hand at the back of all of us, black bark, slick yellow leaves, a kind of stillness that feels so mute it's almost in another year. I am a hearth of spiders these days, a nest of trying. We point out the stars that make Orion as we take out the trash, the rolling containers a song of suburban thunder. It's almost romantic as we adjust the waxy blue recycling bin until you say, man, we should really learn some new constellations. And it's true. We keep forgetting about Antlia, Centaurus, Draco, Lacerta, Hydra, Lyra, Lynx. But mostly we're forgetting we're dead stars too. My mouth is full of dust and I wish to reclaim the rising, to lean in the spotlight of streetlight with you toward what's larger within us, towards how we were born. Look, we are not unspectacular things. We have come this far, survived this much. What would happen if we decided to survive more, to love harder? What if we stood up with our synapses and flesh and said no? No to the rising tides, stood for the many mute mouths of the sea, of the land? What would happen if we used our bodies to bargain for the safety of others, for Earth, if we declared a clean night, if we stopped being terrified, if we launched our demands into the sky, made ourselves so big people could point to us with the arrows they make in their minds, rolling their trash bins out after all of this is over? Is anyone here, is this their first poetry reading? Oh, yay! Oh, wonderful. Welcome. That was 4 poems. So you have 8 more to go, and you are doing great. I'm trying to figure out where I want to read this poem. It's funny. You have to feel how the body feels in the body. Feel how the body feels in the body. This is a poem that's important to me because it's about not giving up. And it turns out we should not give up. Instructions on not giving up. More than the fuchsia funnels breaking out of the crab apple tree. More than the neighbor's almost obscene display of cherry limbs shoving their cotton candy-colored blossoms to the slate sky of spring rains. It's the greening of the trees that really gets to me. When all the shock of white and taffy, the world's baubles and trinkets, leave the pavement strewn with the confetti of aftermath, the leaves come, patient, plodding, a green skin growing over whatever winter did to us, a return to the strange idea of continuous living, despite the mess of us, the hurt, the empty. Fine then. I'll take it, the tree seems to say, a new slick leaf unfurling like a fist to an open palm. I'll take it all. And then I'll read a love poem for my husband. Has anyone here seen a horse being born? Yeah, a few of you. They're all here, by the way. Everyone who's seen a horse being born is situated right here. They got together earlier, organized their seating. This is, if you have seen it, it's a very interesting experience. Because a horse comes out of another horse. And it just walks. And I've seen it a few times living in Kentucky, as you might imagine. For a long time, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with that image, and I wanted to turn it into something and do something with it. And finally, it became a love poem. What I didn't know before was how horses simply give birth to other horses. Not a baby by any means, not a creature of liminal spaces, but already a 4-legged beast, hell-bent on walking, scrambling after the mother. A horse gives way to another horse, and then suddenly there are 2 horses. Just like that. That's how I loved you. You off the long train from Red Bank, carrying a coffee as big as your arm, a bag with 2 computers swinging in it unwieldily at your side. I remember we broke into laughter when we saw each other. What was between us wasn't a fragile thing to be coddled, cooed over. It came out fully formed, ready to run. I'm going to move to the newest book, and I'm going to start with a poem that's a poem from my stepmother who died in February of 2010. And around this year, and I'm sure we all have this, the anniversaries of things, and even though it's March now, it still feels like the time I was grieving. And so it's a prose poem. It reads a little faster, and it's about that beautiful plant, which I've seen you have, Forsythia. Forsythia. At the cabin in Snug Hollow, near McSwain Branch Creek, just spring, all the animals are out, and my beloved and I are lying in bed in a soft silence. We are talking about how we carry so many people with us wherever we go, how even when simply living, these unearned moments are a tribute to the dead. We are both expecting to hear an owl as the night deepens. All afternoon from the porch, we watched an eastern towhee furiously build her nest in the untamed forsythia, with its yellow spilling out into the horizon. I told him that the way I remember the name Forsythia is that when my stepmother, Cynthia, was dying that last week, she said lucidly but mysteriously, "More yellow." And I thought, yes, more yellow. And I nodded because I agreed, of course, more yellow. And so now, in my head, when I see that yellow tangle, I say, for Cynthia, for Cynthia, for Scythia, for Scythia, more yellow. It is night now, and the owl never comes. Only more of night, and what repeats in the night. Thank you. I want to read a poem for friendship. And I know that there's a lot of writers in the room and some students. And I know that you are at that moment when you are making those lifelong friendships that will sustain you in your artistic life forever, because we don't make art alone, we make it in community. And even though oftentimes it's us alone on the page that needs to do the work, we often need the ladder out, right? And that ladder out is our friends. And so I'm going to read this for my two dear friends, Trish and Heather. It's called Blowing on the Wheel. It's getting late. The light's grayish cold on the hillside, and I'm thinking of car rides from Brooklyn to the Cape, or up to Moon Mountain from the city, or out to Stockbridge that one winter when H and her sister and cousin, and how we called them the Stockbridges. And I accidentally said, "Have a Norman Mailer Christmas," and not a Norman Rockwell Christmas. And we laughed at how sad a Norman Mailer Christmas would be. Or how another time we waited for T to put our bags in the car as if she was not just driving, but our driver. Or how after T got a ticket on 6 East, she'd go the speed limit, but blow on the steering wheel like it was a sail and say, "Is the car even on?" The three of us always piling into the back of some cab and decided what was next, which was never bed, because there was still so much to figure out. And how someone once asked H if we ever just ran out of subjects to keep talking about. And of course we wouldn't, we won't, it's endless. And this is endless. The dark sky in the way that it makes me think that we are wandering around right now, New York City, somewhere, or at the Governor Bradford and not wandering at all, or just talking, or not talking, or being happy, or not unhappy. And this is my secret work, to be worthy of you both and this infinite discourse, where everything is interesting because you point it out and say, "Isn't that interesting?" And how mostly we say, "Remember that time?" And we nod because we do remember that time, except for the few times we've forgotten. Like that one time when H was trying to remind us of something, and when we asked her what, she said, "I don't know, but you were there and I was there." And we were. During the very heart of the pandemic, when we were separated out from each other and I couldn't really see any of my beloveds, I started to use that time to maybe rethink some of the myths that were told to me as a child, or myths that I told to myself. And one of them, which still kind of makes my skin crawl, which is the phrase "from a broken home." And I don't think that's true for many of us that have been told that. And I also thought that it was this sort of strange thing of, being teased that you had 4 parents show up to parent-teacher night, And so I wrote this poem because I was realizing I was missing, not just one set of parents, but the other set of parents. And I feel like sometimes it's easier and simpler to describe our lives one way. And our lives are not simple. They're complicated. And family is complicated and beautiful. So this is a long way of saying it's a short poem. Joint custody. Why did I never see it for what it was? Abundance. 2 families, 2 different kitchen tables, 2 sets of rules, 2 creeks, 2 highways, 2 step-parents with their fish tanks or 8-tracks or cigarette smoke or expertise in recipes or reading skills. I cannot reverse it. The record scratched and stopped to that original chaotic track. But let me say, I was taken back and forth on Sundays, and it was not easy. But I was loved, each place. And so I have 2 brains now. 2 entirely different brains. The one that always misses where I'm not, and the one that is finally relieved to be home. And then I'll read this. I feel like I read a love poem, so I have to read a not a love poem. I was going to say it was an anti-love poem, but that is not true. But like many of you all, I'm sure, when we were very isolated from each other, I became obsessed with my birds. I already fed the birds, but then it was just like I had the VIP feeder, I had, the suet, there's a lot happening now. And the bird watching became very serious. So this is a poem, it's another prose poem. It starts out somewhere with birds and then it goes somewhere else. Calling things what they are. I pass the feeder and yell, "Grackle party." And then an hour later I yell, "Morning dove after party." I call the feeder the party and the seed on the ground the after party. I am getting so good at watching that I've even dug out the binoculars an old poet gave me back when I was young and heading to the Cape with so much future ahead of me. It was like my own ocean. "Tufted titmouse," I yell, and Lucas laughs and says, "Thought so," but he is humoring me. He didn't think so at all. My father does the same thing, shouts out at the feeder, announcing the party's attendees. He throws out a whole peanut or 2 to the Stellar's jay, who visits on the low oak branch in the morning. To think there was a time I thought birds were kind of boring. Brown bird, gray bird, black bird, blah, blah, blah bird. Then I started to learn their names by the ocean. And the person I was dating said, "That's the problem with you, Limon. You're all fauna and no flora." And I began to learn the names of trees. I like to call things as they are. Before, the only thing I was interested in was love, how it grips you, how it terrifies you, how it annihilates you and resuscitates you. I didn't know then that it wasn't even love that I was interested in, but my own suffering. I thought suffering kept things interesting. How funny that I called it love, and the whole time it was pain. He really did say that. That's the problem with you, Limon. You're all fauna and no flora. Oh, I should never date a poet. We just write down all your lines. Okay, so I have 2 more poems to read, but I think what I'm going to do is read 3 poems. I know that's breaking the rules, but I'll tell you why in a second. Here's what. This is the second. Is because I actually, I read this poem so many times that I stopped reading it for a little while. But I have it printed out right here. And was it Mike Eats, who liked How to Triumph Like a Girl? Okay, let's read How to Triumph Like a Girl. How to Triumph Like a Girl, for Mike. I like the lady horses best, how they make it all look easy. Like running 40 miles per hour is as fun as taking a nap or grass. I like their lady horse swagger after winning. Ears up, girls, ears up. But mainly, let's be honest, I like that they're ladies. As if this big, dangerous animal is also a part of me. That somewhere inside the delicate skin of my body, there pumps an 8-pound female horse heart. Giant with power, heavy with blood. Don't you want to believe it? Don't you want to lift my shirt and see the huge, beating genius machine that thinks, no, it knows, it's going to come in first. So 2 more poems, and I wanted to read this poem just because I think it's so good that we're all together in this room. And I know that for a lot of us, we have been isolated, and I think healing is done in community, like Bell Hooks said. It's also about the word lover, which I think makes a lot of people cringe, which I have always loved. But if you say it to people, they're like, ugh, gross, lover. So in my obstinance, I named the poem Lover. Lover. Easy light storms in through the window, soft edges of the world smudged by mist, a squirrel's nest rigged high in the maple. I've got a bone to pick with whomever is in charge. All year I've said, you know what's funny? And then nothing. Nothing is funny. Which makes me laugh in an oblivion is coming sort of way. A friend writes the word lover in a note, and I'm strangely excited for the word lover to come back. Come back, lover. Come back to the 5 and dime. I could squeal with the idea of blissful release. Oh, lover, what a word, what a world, this gray waiting. In me, a need to nestle deep into the safe keeping of sky. I'm too used to nostalgia now, a sweet escape of age, centuries of pleasure before us and after us, still right now, a softness like the worn fabric of a nightshirt. And what I do not say is, I trust the world to come back. return like a word long forgotten and maligned for all its gross tenderness. A joke told in a sunbeam, the world walking in, ready to be ravaged, open for business. And I'll close with this poem, which is the last poem in The Hurting Kind, which is a poem that I wrote in March of 2020, I think, and really feeling like poetry had forsaken me. I had a hard time writing. I'm sure many of us did, making art, doing anything, because of the fear and anxiety of where we were at, losing people that we were close to, and our own illnesses, all those things. And so I started to sort of write poems in my head, and then I would tell myself, oh, you can't write a poem about that. And then, of course, words that I liked the sounds of would come in, etc. And then all of that began to become a poem. The end of poetry. Enough of osseous and chickadee and sunflower and snowshoes, maple and seeds, samara and shoot. Enough chiaroscuro, enough of dusts and prophecy, and the stoic farmer and faith in our Father and 'tis of thee. Enough of bosom and bud, skin and God not forgetting, and star bodies and frozen birds. Enough of the will to go on or not go on, or how a certain light does a certain thing. Enough of the kneeling and the rising and the looking inward and the looking up. Enough of the gun, the drama, and the acquaintance's suicide, the long-lost letter on the dresser. Enough of the longing and the ego and the obliteration of ego. Enough of the mother and the child and the father and the child. And enough of the pointing to the world, weary and desperate. Enough of the brutal and the border. Enough of, can you see me? Can you hear me? Enough, I am human. Enough, I am alone and I am desperate. Enough of the animal saving me. Enough of the high water. Enough sorrow. Enough of the air and its ease. I am asking you to touch me. Thank you.
This is where you ask them. Come on up.
Thank you so much for coming and reading.
Thank you for having me.
My sister, we're both writers, and we're also both from the North Bay.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Callie.
It was really wonderful to hear your work. And so I know you addressed this a little bit in the preface to your final poem. I find that like sometimes I don't write for a really long time, but then something bad happens and I come back to it. And I was wondering what your relationship with writing or not writing has been throughout your life, and how poetry has helped you through difficult times, and kind of what your intersections with it have been.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you so much. I feel like there are, I am writing all the time. You know, I think that those of us who are artists, there are times where we may not produce work, right? But we're taking notes, or we're receiving, or we're gathering. And I think of it as just seasons. It's like, oh, I'm just going through the gathering season right now. And then something will turn on. And for me, it's usually silence. Like I have a little time to sit in silence and be alone. And then all the poems come back. I take notes constantly. I take notes daily. And right now, honestly, even on the road, I'm writing about a poem a week, or a draft of a poem. They're not really complete, and they'll need lots of work, but something is in the works. And I feel like for me, it's a way of always saying like, hey, like I'm here, like I'm writing myself back into the world. And honestly, when I feel down and I can't pinpoint it and I can't name it, and I don't know what it is that I'm in agony over, I can sit and write and feel once again like I'm a human being living in a world that I want to be in. So it's absolutely necessary to do, but it doesn't mean I have to do it every day on a schedule. That's not me. Maybe some artists work that way, but poetry's never been that way for me. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi. Thank you so much for coming. You're amazing, and I've been reading your poetry for a long time. And I've noticed, like in the poems you read tonight and just in your work, you mentioned the color yellow a lot. And yellow's my favorite color. And I feel like it's often, I don't know, I feel like nobody really understands why. And I don't know, I'm just asking you, I guess I'm just asking you if you wanted to talk about the color yellow.
That's like the best question I've gotten. No, I feel like, thank you. I love the color yellow, and I struggle with actually having a favorite color, but I think that yellow for me is it's forsythia for one, is the first bloom, and so and then the other first bloom is the daffodil, and so right when you're about to just give up, right, like it's just going to be cold forever, then this yellow comes. And I often feel like yellow is that color of revival, and renewal. And it's just like, let's just give this one more shot. That's what I think of as yellow for me. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm Mike. As you know, I'm a big fan of you. So in the past, you mentioned the poem that inspired you to start writing was One Art by Elizabeth Bishop. And I'm curious what poems or poets inspire you to keep writing today.
Yeah, that's a great question. And thank you for having me read How to Triumph Like a Girl. I haven't read it in so long, so I appreciate the impulse to bring it into the room. But I think for me right now, it's such a wonderful time to be reading contemporary work. Of course, I go back to Bishop all the time. I go back to Audre Lorde. In fact, I was just finished rereading Audre Lorde's Collected, which is a lot. But I think that the contemporary work that I'm reading is really always inspires me. I mean, I think Natalie Diaz is one of our best writers living today. I think Post-Colonial Love Poem, that book is incredible. I think Diane Seuss is incredible. I think Terrence Hayes is incredible. I think Ross Gay is, one of my heart poets. And these are people that, they're friends, but like I devour anything they send me and anything they publish. So those are sort of the tier in which I'm just always aspiring to be and in community with. So yeah, I'm reading them all the time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Ms. Limon. My name is Anna Rodriguez Quay.
Hi.
And I really resonated with the message in The Hurting Kind that, so often our art and our writing can come from suffering to the point that it's expected, like the tortured artist. The meaning of writing, especially like along with reading that book, has kind of shifted for me in that way. And I want to know how you find ways to authentically write from emotions like joy and curiosity rather than suffering.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful question. And I feel like I have often struggled with the same thing, that there is something, that heightens the work when you create the emotional tension of pain and suffering or the trauma of loss. All of those things can immediately elevate the poem and make it, vibrate. And I think that those poems have to be written, right? And they're worthy of being written. We need to write them for ourselves. But I also think we do ourselves a disservice if that's the place that we stay in, or if that's where we think art lives, because we live everywhere. And I think that it's not only writers of color, but I find it it seems to me in my life that it's especially writers of color get to be asked about to perform their suffering. And when I was coming up as a poet, that was often the case for me. People would ask me to read poems, particularly about border stories, or particularly, and I was like, yeah, I'm from California. Like, what border are you talking about? Like, I mean, like, I'm literally like the Sonoma-Napa border. I was like, my grandfather is Mexican, and like, yeah, I have a huge Mexican family. I'm very proud of my heritage. But this kind of sort of trying to also not only allow us to, to feel pigeonholed, or to kind of create a space in which we feel like we can only write about suffering in order to be celebrated for that. But also in a way that, it taught me that our joy is totally radical. And so now when I write about joy, or if I write about contentedness, which is the hardest thing to write about, you write a poem, I'm doing okay today. Like, really, really hard to do. But to do that, to write about love, to write about joy, to write about happiness, that to me is completely an act of rebellion, and it's completely radical. And so that's how I keep doing it, is because I tell myself it is literally an act of survival, and I'm giving it to my ancestors.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome. I'd never heard of you before, and someone from a poetry group called the Flamingos
Nice.
said we were coming here tonight, and I happened to hear an interview this morning on Blue Ridge Public Radio.
Oh, good.
And you mentioned that nobody ever asks you this question, and I said, if no one's going to ask it, then I'm going to ask it. And it has to do with your solo work,
Yeah.
the work that you keep for yourself. You said nobody ever asked me about that.
Yeah.
And
that's
so I'd like
great.
to ask.
Yeah.
Tell me about that solo
Yeah,
work.
the work is like this job and this position and life as a poet, like in my particular role right now, is very public. But I make a lot of poems that I don't share with anyone. And I think it's really important for all of us to know that you can make poems that you don't need to share with anyone, and that you don't need to be a public artist to be an artist. And I find it like very, I never want to be that person that's like, oh, that's what a poet is. Like, this is wonderful. And I love performing and doing all of this. I love showing up and connecting. But what I love most of all is writing poems. And that's what makes me feel the most alive. And so that part of it, that really private part of making, is the thing that still brings me the most joy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi. Just wanted to ask, from a Latina to another Latina, how do you find the motivation to keep writing? Because sometimes it feels like poetry was not made for us.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I really admire it, because I feel like when I was starting out as a poet, I had incredible teachers, and yet in all of the anthologies, like, I was just like, okay, I guess William Carlos Williams, like, I was like, is he Mexican? And I would get really, like, they'd be like, no, like, his mom's from Puerto Rico. But I was like, okay, at least he's Latino. And I was just like, but I was searching desperately to find voices that match mine, or that I could be mentored by, and they weren't there. I'm so happy to say that that's really changed throughout the years. It's still an uphill battle, right? But the expansion of the canon is happening, and we're seeing it in real time. So that's part of the thing that inspires me, is that I'm seeing it. Like, nowadays, if someone says, who are you reading that are like Latino poets, I can name, 20 off the top of my head. And I feel like, but the other part of it, I guess, is also because I wasn't seen in those spaces, that I feel an obligation to be seen in those spaces. And sometimes even when I feel fatigued by the sort of public, aspect of identity, I remember that my grandfather from San Juan de los Lagos, Francisco Carlos Limon, would have been so incredibly happy to know that this work was being done and that I was the person doing this work. And so I'm always like, when I feel like I'm ready to kind of give up, I literally am like, okay, the ancestors do not want me to give up. And I do that for them. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sure.
How many languages do you write in?
I only write in English. I've been translated into Spanish, and a new translation in Italian just came out, which I'm very excited about. And I have done some translation on my own. My brother is fluent in Spanish, and we're working on some co-translations, which I really love because it's also working with my brother. But yeah, I only write in English, and but I will say that when you say only English in America, in the United States, it's never only English, right? It's like everything that we hear is like all of the tidbits, you know? In fact, there's this beautiful new book out, which is The Language of Trees, which is like poems that are all translated into the language of trees. So yeah, I think right now is a really exciting time for translations in general. But yeah, I'm writing in English, and again, that means a lot of different things, I think, including the Latin names of trees and plants. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Well, thank you all so much for being here with us this evening. Let's have another round of applause for her.
Thank you so much. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'll take a picture for my mother. She'll be so happy. Hi, Mom. Thank you so much, you guys.